yourself in this, dear. It must be freezing.
Now, you just tell us where home is, and we'll get you back to your parents safe and sound, okay?
Anywhere but Derry.
I think it all starts with our monster and its MO. It will kill you, but before, it will make sure that, you're seasoned with enough adrenaline. This is what it does. It's like creates a situation that is apparently safe and innocent, and it's a slow descent into madness.
I'm Marc Bernardin, TV and comic book writer, podcaster, professional nerd, reform journalist, and I first encountered Derry when I read the novel It, Too Damn Young.
And I'm Princess Weeks, pop culture critic, horror lover, and I encountered it when my mother was reading the book while I was in utero. So thank you, Mom, for those natural antibodies.
Welcome to the official It, Welcome to Derry podcast.
Buckle up. We're going deep into the sewers of Derry. Every week, we'll be debriefing what we just watched together, which is always messed up, and talking to the people who made the show, plus the ones who bring it to life on screen.
And today, right out of the gate, we got a big one, or a big two. We'll be talking with the executive producers, Andy and Barbara Muschietti. Andy directed the It films, Barbara produced alongside him, and together the Muschietti siblings have returned to Derry to help shepherd this series.
And this episode, the pilot, is written by Jason Fuchs, directed by Andy Muschietti, and bookended by Mutant Babies.
Mutant Babies in cars, Mutant Babies in theaters. Derry doesn't exactly roll out the welcome mat, unless it's being rolled out by Mutant Babies.
No, it does not.
Okay, quick warning before we dive in. There will be spoilers for episode 1.
So if you haven't watched it yet, hit pause, go watch Welcome to Derry, and come back when you've survived the Mutant Babies.
We'll wait.
And welcome back, brave soul.
Let's get into it.
You all right, young man?
Yes. Look at you. You poor thing. Get in before you catch your death and cold.
Thank you.
I gotta tell you, it's always fun to situate a period story with hitchhiking because you see it happen, you're like, a sign of the times. We don't have that anymore.
No, poor white kid out on the streets just looking for a ride somewhere. Who's gonna pick him up? Well, demon family.
Yeah, a nice demon family. And, I love the escalation of that scene.
Yeah, I love the way that scene kind of just rises. Like it starts very subtle.
Wrap yourself in this, dear. It must be freezing.
And then the sister pulls out the basin of liver just to touch the goo.
Spell trouble.
T-R-U.
That's weird. It becomes a gallery of what's weird. Which one of these things are not like the other? And it's very clear that Maddie is the thing that's not like the other.
If we could just pull over you for a second.
O-T-S.
Cadaver.
C-A-D-A-V-E-R.
Strangulation.
No, please, no. R-A-N-G-U-L-A-T-I-O-N.
Let me out.
Out. O-U-T.
Let me out.
O-U-T.
O-U-T.
One of the things that it has always done that I think really has always rocked me and will come up later in this episode is that it really does deal with children dying. And I think it's important to remember that that's kind of the stakes of this franchise is like this loss of innocence. And I think starting it off with like this very pacifier wearing child trying to escape and then meeting his demise. It's just a reminder, in Derry, no one is safe.
For sure. And also the idea that childhood is trauma is something that they put on the stage immediately with like childbirth is trauma.
Yes.
And we're going to show you all of it in the worst way possible. Like I just came off of watching The Pit and I thought I
was like, yeah.
I thought I had enough like vaginal distress. And then here comes Welcome to Derry. Like hold my beer.
Hey girl. But she handled it like a champ pretty much because she was excited the whole time.
Looks like somebody else wants to get O-U-T.
O-U-T. It was a really effective way to kind of both introduce you to a show that's going to lull you into a certain amount of, I'm not going to say complacence, but ease. And then find a way to pervert that ease and make it deeply unsettling. And like that opening sequence was a great sort of statement of intent.
Right.
And just like the direction was great, the car was great, it all very much quickly coalesced into, I'm not going to like what this does to me. This show's going to make me feel bad about all things.
Absolutely. And I also love how we had the juxtaposition of the supernatural horror and the real life anxiety of the Cold War period, and really getting this reinforcement of people being afraid, you know, of nuclear warfare, of the duck and cover bomb drills, which I have to say is kind of quaint to know that we're still going back to that time period, because I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm like, is it still nostalgic for people to go back to this period the way it was for like our generation? And it's like, it still hits because that kind of human anxiety and political anxiety, you know, topical.
Topical. And also it doesn't foreground it that much. Like it reminded me a lot, maybe this is a weird reference, but Iron Giant also kind of takes place in this like very bucolic northeastern town where the fear permeates everything. To the point, but it's not even like in that movie, Hogarth is afraid of it. He's just aware of it at all times. It's always on the TV. It's in his comic books. It's in his world. But he's just going to be a kid doing kid stuff. And it feels very much that kind of thing where adults are concerned about this, but our protagonists are like, we're just kids in a kid world doing kid stuff.
Exactly. Like, we just want to read our Flash comics in peace.
For real. And it also is very much a Stephen King thing.
Yes.
From The Body, the story that became Stand By Me, he very much likes to tell stories about A, small towns in Maine, but B, that collision between childhood and adulthood.
Right.
And what it means to learn that the world is scarier than you ever thought it was, to step into a new reality to a certain degree. And that's a big theme in his work.
Absolutely. And also the isolation of being the other in all the nuances of that, whether it be through race with the major handler coming in, but also Lily, who goes through something very mentally traumatic, and all her classmates put pickle jars in her locker. Like, hazing was different back then. I was like,
Yo, I've never been hazed with produce before.
Right.
And I don't want to. That sounds awful.
But also so much effort. There were so many jars in there. I'm like, who paid for that?
They had less to do. They really did. Like, we got these books we can read. There's the one radio show. We have one TV in the house. Like, there's no internet. What else are we going to do?
Guess I'll just stink like pickle juice until dinner. Well, if you ask me, they smell delicious.
We get Major Leroy Hanlon come up, and I think it's really interesting because the name is different, but that is the familial name of the main Black character in it, Mike. This is his family. And I thought it was just really interesting that a lot of his narrative in the It book and in the films was dealing with his racial otherness in Derry and sort of dealing with just the racism from people who felt like he didn't belong. And we see the beginning of that. But then also I feel we get General Shaw stepping in as well. But we're already starting to see that racial conflict happening in Derry. And just a reminder that these small towns, you know, just because they don't call them sundown towns doesn't mean they don't have sundown town energy.
Yeah, lots of good morning. And that good morning is not good morning. In the same way that bless your heart is not a benediction. I found it really interesting that they cast Jovan Adepo, who played a very similar kind of role in Watchmen.
Yeah.
Of the, you know, first Black X in a place that does not have Black X. You know, and also I noticed that Cord Jefferson is a consulting producer on the show who wrote the episode of Watchmen that featured Jovan in such a big way. And he's an incredibly empathetic actor. You know, there's definitely a steel in his spine, but there's definitely a softness to the way he carries himself.
Yeah.
Which feels right for a Black man at that time who cannot be confrontational in any way, but still has to retain the station. He's a major in what seems to be the Air Force.
I am your superior commissioned officer, so I expect to be accorded the respect of said rank.
He can't not be that person, but he also can't run up against the reality of being a Black man in that particular time, in that particular place.
Do I make myself clear?
I'll get you next time, brother.
Yeah, and it instantly puts you on edge because he cannot navigate safely without some kind of whiteness behind him. So we have that with General Shaw stepping in.
Do we have a problem here?
No, sir, General Shaw.
But we know that's a temporary state of protection, and how even within the hierarchical situation of the Army where he should have this respect inherently, there is no promise of that. And so I think it kind of sets us up for like things that are going to be coming in the future. Like, how much will his uniform protect him? And we know. Not that much, but I think narratively that'll be really layered because we don't get that image of Blackness so much in the original It book because it takes place with the son and not the father. So I'm curious to see how that will play out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And another thing that I'm always impressed by is when a show or a story about children does not give us shitty children.
Yeah.
Because my least favorite trope is like the teen who's a rebel who doesn't obey the very specific rules of the world to go be a teen. And like, I don't care that there's zombies everywhere. I'm going to go out to the docks and be with my girlfriend. And what could go wrong? Like, bruv, we know what movie you're in. We know what show you're in. Everything is going to go wrong. And so none of these kids, now, you know, Phil, Teddy, Lily, like none of them seem to be ridiculous in what they do.
Right.
Everything feels motivated by want and desire and station and environment. And it is not like rebels for rebels' sake. It is not just punks for punk's sake.
Exactly. And I think the guilt that they all feel about their relationship to Maddie, with Phil and Teddy feeling like they weren't really good friends to him, Lily feeling bad for having, you know, quote unquote spurned him. He'll get over it. But I think it kind of speaks to that when something happens like this in a small town, everyone is somewhat impacted. Everyone kind of feels the remnants of that loss. And we're seeing that very intimately with these kids. And it makes their investment in trying to figure out what happened to him make sense. They aren't just kind of plucked from, like, as you said, like this kind of precocious mentality of like, let's just go on an adventure in the sewer. Because I'm not doing that, you know? You
Nobody
have to personalize
should.
it for me. You know, that's why with Georgie, it was like, I get it, that's your brother. You got to go after your brother. But
Let's go play in the sewers is a thing that I have never said once in my whole ass life.
But I also love all the little Easter eggs that we kind of get, like the turtle charm and turtles being good luck. I was like, I know what you did there. I get it. We know the sacred turtle. And I think those are also kind of like fun ways of allowing the world building to happen organically. Like if you know the source material, it all kind of clicks together, but it also just provides a lot of flavor and insight into that these are kids who get excited over things like this. I think that it manages to do that also very well.
For sure. And like, it's super, super tricky to play the Easter egg game, which is you don't want it to feel like whack-a-mole, where it's like, you know, you're checking boxes for the things that you think you're supposed to. It's like, ooh, it's Stephen King. What point am I going to get a Stan reference? When am I going to get a Shining reference? When am I going to? And too much of that distracts from the experience of watching the show and investing in the drama. And so that is a very careful balance that a show like this has to ride. And so far, so good. Because nothing felt like it had flashing lights on it. Like, look, it's the thing. Remember the thing?
And I definitely feel like that balance can make it really fun. As a nerd, I like to go into the weeds and be like, who's this character doing this and whatever. And so, you know, when we see Chris Chalk playing Halloran, and I know he's playing Halloran because I saw it online because I'm a dork. And for those who don't know, Dick Halloran is the wise old man in The Shining.
And to that point, it's like, how does what we know about Dick Halloran, which is not very much, like we know the ending of his story.
Right.
So what's the beginning of his story? What was life like as this person with a gift that he can control, does understand? What's his relationship to power? All of that stuff is just promising story that we're going to get to later on in the show. And that's exciting. Like that was the biggest, like, ooh, really?
I also really loved the scene where Lily hears Maddie in the pipes of her shower drain.
Maddie, is that you?
I loved the spookiness of that because if you've ever lived in an old house where it makes all these weird kind of noises, you can feel that kind of anxiety. But what I love the most about that and how it kind of escalates the narrative is how much people listen to children when they have dealt with trauma. Because we find out that Lily's father got turned into mush and then was put into pickle jars. And then that's why they put pickles in the locker, which I think should get them at least detention. Maybe I'm too carceral, but I'm just like, that's a little fucked up. Like I can't. Like, he didn't leave the family to go get milk and with a new baby mama. Like he got turned into pickles. That's crazy.
He got jarred. Like we should do something about this.
Yeah, it's jarring that they're making such a casual joke about it. Thank you.
Oh,
thank you.
Listen, let's take a moment. Take a moment for the wordplay, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well
you.
played.
That English degree pays off so much, kids. Don't tell them humanities won't serve you in the future. But yeah,
Yes.
I really appreciated like that kind of dark macabre and how, because she has that trauma, people don't trust her. And I think it speaks a lot to, again, that theme of otherness, that this is someone who people have decided is quote unquote crazy. And therefore anything she says cannot be taken seriously.
One of the characters that I was most intrigued by, who feels very much like a grenade that's going to go off at some point, was Marge, her little, bespectacled buddy, who seems like she's supportive, except 100% not.
What are you doing? Making sure none of our friends hear me talking like this, because what you're saying is crazy, and I don't mean to use that word. I know what I heard. Listen to me. We've only got 2 more months till summer. Let's just get through them without giving everyone something new to whisper about you.
She's a bit of a heat-seeking missile who just wants to belong, and how will she belong? And was Lily the one person that she was friends with? Now that seems rocky, there's a bunch of other girls who seem to be like the mean girls of school, who if she can be meaner than they are, maybe they'll recognize game and invite her into the clubhouse. But that feeling of again, otheredness and what a person does when they are othered and how they try to make themselves proximity-wise closer to fitting in. And like that story, that kind of political navigation that she seems to be embarking on is going to go bad.
Yeah. If my knowledge of Carrie has served me in any way, it's that the conformist kids get theirs in their own way.
Indeed. And especially like the shiftiest one of those kids gets very, very specifically ruined in ways that are going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. It'll be fun to see it happen. Then you have Teddy and Phil, who are the ones that Lily kind of enlists, and they at first don't believe her, but then Teddy has the worst dream of all time. I was just like, damn. Like, I really did love the setup for that, of him talking to his father about the bad things happening in the sewers, and him kind of connecting that to the Holocaust and the trauma of that.
Your grandparents escaped Buchenwald. Their entire families murdered. The skin of Jewish prisoners used for lampshades.
What?
Lampshades.
And then when we see that lamp, I was just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, they went there. I also want to take some time to talk about the incredible use of the movie, The Music Man. We see it early on in the movie theater that Maddie is going into and finally gets, booted out of. But then it comes back at the end, and there's something very insidious about The Music Man as a movie itself, which is about a very bucolic small town where everybody is fine and everything is okay. And then here comes this guy who riles everything up, who completely unsettles the way everybody relates to each other. He identifies wants and needs. He finds ley lines and fractures between people to exploit it for his own selfish well-being until whatever, he falls in love and decides he's not going to be a con man anymore. But that feeling of small town disrupted by newcomer feels very like it is not an accidental choice, that's the movie that seems to be a little bit of where evil is resting, at the very least in the first episode of the season. And how both Maddie functions as the weirdness, how Lily to a certain degree functions as the weirdness, how all of these characters are kind of the weirdness in a place that doesn't seem like it brooks a lot of weirdness. And then Hanlon and his family are the weirdness. We don't get to meet the family, but we know that they're coming. And so how are these people going to fit into this world? And then what's the response of this world to the new thing?
Absolutely. And, I've seen parts of The Music Man, but I have seen the monorail episode of The Simpsons. So I know...
That's all you need.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. The problem is that the people in the town don't realize the corrosion that's already there. And that's the whole thing about Derry. It's like they don't realize it's not the outsider that's necessarily ruining it for you. It's that the outsider is already it's feeding off of what you already are giving it. And I think that is also what makes this kind of small town horror so encompassing. There's a reason why these stories don't take place in the hood or in the urban areas, because people want to feel safe in these towns. They want to feel like we have secluded ourselves enough that the outside can never get to us. And by the time they realize it's already there, it's too late.
Before we bounce out of here, we have to talk about the movie theater scene.
Oh my God.
I told you weird shit was going on over that airbase. They made a giant fucking mutant baby.
I like to think that I'm a relatively experienced watcher of television and kind of understanding, a little bit of the narrative thread and, to a certain degree, tropes and systematic realities of we're setting up a cast of characters. These are going to be the protagonists that we're following for a season. This is the family that we are at some point going to find a way to disrupt. And then they kill half the family.
Uh-huh.
Like, yo, we're not supposed to play like this.
What do you mean they're all gone? What happened?
It's a bold choice because, again, you do not see that coming in any way. I mean, you also think that like Demon Baby might have been a dream, might have been a hallucination, might have been a whatever. But when it claws its way out of the movie screen and begins to like strafe and airbomb and destroy, it's like, oh, we are not playing anymore. Like this, everybody is, it's not so much a haunted house where we're picking them off one at a time. Just vast swaths of lives are going to be sacrificed on the altar of Welcome to Derry.
It was so evocative of like, the first Scream movie or the first part of the Nightmare on Elm Street of just like that kind of bait and switch is just so perfect. I think what it does for you as a viewer is it keeps you on your toes because I was so ready to be invested in Teddy and Phil and what they're going to do. And it's like, no, actually it's Ronnie and Lily. Ronnie's the young girl who helps Maddie escape when he's getting chased out of the movie in the first time. And it's like this young black girl and this other white girl who's already perceived as an outsider. These are going to be maybe our new protagonists. They're going to listen to them less. So it's like it already gets you ready that there's going to be this really compelling conflict coming out of it because who's going to take credit for those dead kids?
It's going to be these two ladies.
Oh my god.
It's going to be Ebony and Ivory trying to survive their way through Derry.
In perfect disharmony.
Perfect
Lord.
disharmony. It reminds me of the very first episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where in the opening credits is a character that they kill midway through the show.
Yeah.
Like Eric Balfour is like part of the cast as far as the opening credits tell you. And then they kill him. And then he's out of the opening credits. That level of like, we're investing you in a thing in every way we can and just teaching you through that demise that nothing is really safe and that nothing is as you think it's going to be.
And I think that is such fun storytelling. And I think we're used to seeing really brutal things happen. It's HBO. But I think that there's still nothing that gets you prepared to see several children be destroyed by a flying demon bat baby. That is just something, it still feels new in 2025. I want to know how this series came together, how it went from chapter 1 to chapter 2 to an 8-episode series.
To answer that, we sat down with the people who know Derry best, executive producers Andy and Barbara Muschietti. They're the team behind the It films, and now they've come back to expand the story with Welcome to Derry.
Who better to kick off our very first conversation? Andy and Barbara, welcome to the show. And thank you so much for being here.
Marc, Princess, thank you so much for having us. This is going to be fun.
Oh, you say that now. Just you wait.
Exactly. We'll get the pickles ready. We're so excited to talk about the series, and we're so fascinated to find out, how and when the idea for Welcome to Derry came about.
So I guess it all started while we were finishing it too, and due to the proximity with Bill Skarsgård and our friendship and our desire to dig deeper, I think that making 2 movies in a row and then leaving the project with the desire to do more. And also all the question marks that arise, all the mysteries of what is the origin of Pennywise. That is something that is so cryptic in the book and so mysterious. It's one of the great things.
And it is such a sprawling book. It's, I think 1,300 pages.
Something like that. So with Bill, we were like, we have to do an origin story. At that point, it was a very, casual conversations. And, time went by and we all went into different projects. We went into The Flash, and somewhere around that moment at the beginning of Flash, I picked up the idea again. I thought, okay, let's do it. it actually started as the origin of Pennywise, but then it grew into what it turned out to be, which is a bigger exploration of the events of the past, looking into the interludes of the book, all the investigations of Mike Hanlon. The book is something that we love deeply. And you make 2 movies about the book and you still feel the need to tell more of the story. And that's how it started.
Yeah, so we asked Mr. Stephen King, great Stephen King, if he'd be, willing to go that path. We always want his blessing because we admire him so much. And he got really excited by the idea, and Andy decided to pitch him the idea of going backwards in time, right? And making each season a cycle, basically. So there would be a 27-year gap in between each season because that is Pennywise's cycle. He goes to sleep and he wakes up to terrorize the next generation, basically. That's why the 27 years. And since Steve got really excited, we went to the legendary Peter Roth at Warner Brothers, who, of course, Warner Brothers has the rights of the book. So we pitched it to him at the beginning of 2020, right when the pandemic had started. And he bought it in the call. He bought it in the Zoom.
Yeah, so our pitch to them was basically this arc, which was originally a 3-season story. And as Barbie said, it's told backwards. So we jump. Season 1 is in 1962, and season 2 would happen in 1935, which is the next cycle. And it would all resolve in 1908. We only did season 1 so far. We're very happy with it. We'll see what happens with the rest.
Understanding what your plan is and where you're going with it, when did you land on the idea that it was a series, that it was television and not another film?
I could have done one more movie and still be like, have that feeling that we haven't covered all. So I would have to keep making movies and die without ever covering the book. So that was, I think, the initial feeling that we can do a show where, more canvas, more real estate to tell a story, more characters, and specifically spend more time with your characters and articulate their journeys in a different way than you do in a movie. Make them go through different nuances and gray areas that normally in film you're a little more limited. You have a character and you have to basically stick. There is a transformation, but generally you have to stick to one arc. Series give you more possibilities, and really it's to articulate the story better, I think.
I'll give more context to that, which is that the first director's cut was 4 hours. Andy shoots a lot, and I love that because then we have a big, a lot of mud to chisel, basically, right? To mold. And I have to say that it was very painful to bring it down to what a film can bear, which was, in our case, 2 hours 45.
It was still too long. If you ask me now,
yeah.
It was still too long. But the original was 4 hours.
We panicked, actually, when we were prepping it too. I remember having this meeting with Gary Doberman, who was writing the script with us. And the 3 of us decided a weekend in Toronto while we were prepping It Chapter 2 that we would present to the studio It Chapter 2 and It Chapter 3. And we were very excited with our plan. And we presented it to the studio, and the studio said, absolutely no. You're going to do It Chapter 2.
It was a very long script. I remember. It was a script that could be actually divided in 2. And I remember now.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that. But it was presented as 2 movies.
And your passion for it just speaks volumes. And so I just can't help but wonder, what attracts you to the It universe specifically? What about that story sparks so much for you creatively that you're willing to do 8-hour films?
I think it goes back to reading the book. We read the book in that era of your life where, you're imprinted with it in a magical way, in your childhood and your early teens. Everything that you read and you like stays with you forever, especially the things that you enjoy, that you like. And that doesn't necessarily happen the rest of your life. You know, everything that comes to you, everything you read, you see, enters through a different channel, I think, which is tinted a little bit with more rationalism. What you see as a kid or as a, undeveloped brain teenager is absorbed in a different way, and it hits, some parts of your soul that stay with you forever. And I think that many of the Stephen King books, but it definitely left a dent that is not easy to get rid of. I'm saying it in a funny way, but it's really something that you carry for the rest of your life emotionally. Why horror? I can't really explain it. We've been exposed to horror since we were like 6 and 7 years old. And so it's one of our passions. And I think we really respond to those kind of narratives in books and in movies. Horror has been with us as far as we remember.
We grew up in Argentina. We were Argentinian siblings. And during our childhood, there were 4 TV channels. And one of these channels, Canal 13.
Channel 13.
Yeah, Channel 13. Every Saturday had this show called Trip to the Unexpected. And they would show horror movies from any period of time, from any country. It was basically a hodgepodge of whatever license they could get their hands on, I'm guessing. So we got to see incredible movies that were long gone from the screen that we have not had access to because this was before cable, some classic Italian horror movies, some American B movies.
Everything. Everything was there. So we got imprinted by all these things. But going back to the book, I think, this imprint that we had, like, definitely was a reason for us to keep wanting to re-immerse ourselves in it. And also, like, to make justice to, the whole book, which is a huge story with a lot of layers. And, in fact, our intentions for the big arc of the series go beyond the book. And in a way, our aim, our purpose is to basically shed light on all those mysteries. It's a very cryptic book, and it's one of the things that make it so great and so magnetic is that we don't know. And by the end of the book, after 1,200 pages, the losers end up having no idea what it is. Mm-hmm. And all the speculations and investigations don't really amount to anything. They do amount to building big tension and a lot of mysteries and question marks that keep the reader and the viewer at the edge of their seats, of course. So what we did in the series is, like, as a filmmaker, but also as a reader and as an audience, I have the need to go into those mysteries and answer those questions. Now, we answer some of them. We speculate about others. We leave, like, again, we create another plethora of question marks for the effect to keep working. But I think that's the new thing about this story in particular, is that we are giving answers, and we are giving more answers than the book actually poses.
With the blessing of Stephen King, which is always, it's always a soft hand on your shoulder.
And I think the idea, because one of the bigger ideas is to create an iceberg under the water. And at the end of this show, leave people with the feeling that what they saw on the 2 movies and in the book is just the tip of the iceberg of a bigger mythology. Of course, it relates to the other side, the macroverse, and everything that is rightfully hidden from us in the book, because it's like one of the other great things about it is that it's all from the human perspective. The macroverse is something that we only speculate. We hear things about, what we never go to the other side, except for 2 little parts in the book. One of them is, like, we jump into the head of it, and for a second we hear his thoughts, its thoughts, her thoughts. He's actually a female. And the other one is when one of the losers is dead lighted, and we see him, like, just rocketing through the void of the macroverse and going into this big ball of light or dead light.
It may be a female, by the way. We're not sure.
We're not sure. At the end of it, Ben Hanscom goes to the nest of the big spider and sees a lot of eggs. And he returns and says, "It's a female," he announces.
But that may be a part of his hallucination, so we don't know.
It's part of the crypticness. It's part of the mystery. Is it or is it not? Is this the real shape of it?
Is God a man or a woman?
I am wondering, what kind of creative challenges did you face when you revisited Derry with fresh eyes and a fresh time period point of view, like really crafting it in your own way again?
Good question.
No, I think the challenge was obviously to not repeat ourselves. This show has a lot of places in common with the movies, but it definitely spins into a different direction. I think creative challenge is presenting a new set of characters for people who love the movies and love the book. Introducing a new set of characters is a challenging thing. So I think we knew that from the beginning. Like in any movie, you have to make your audience love your characters. But this had the burden, if you will, of a precursor, which was the movies and the book, where people who love those characters, they love those characters. And now we're introducing a story where seemingly the only common denominator is the town and the monster. So that was the challenge. So the challenge was, okay, how do we make people connect to these characters emotionally? And it's not different from what you make in any other movie. You have a limited time, screen time for people to decide if they're on board with these characters, if they're on board with their emotional journeys. And I think we did a good job.
It's also, I think, because the anchor is Derry, is the town. We have clearly a new cast of characters, but with a few of our characters, there's a bloodline component to the characters we already know. And that's very important because, it is about generational trauma. And I don't think this term existed when Steve wrote the book, but that's what it is. Pennywise shows up to scare a new generation.
Yeah, I think it's a puzzle that people will understand as we go into episode 1 and episode 2. They're going to start seeing the connections with the characters that we know before.
But a plus we have with Pennywise in particular, with it, is that we don't need to repeat ourselves because it is a shapeshifter.
Yeah. The Pennywise thing is a fountain of, endless pain. So that part was not challenging. In fact, it was like, okay, now we can do everything that we can do in the movies. Like how many incarnations were left out? Of course, it's a different era, different year. Like the fears are partially different because of specific things that were happening in the era. So the kids were scared of this or that. And that's, it's a non-challenge, actually. It's one of those like opportunities that are really amazing. We can create more creatures, more incarnations.
All right, let's get into some juicy scenes from episode 1.
Yeah, oh my gosh, this opening scene where we meet Maddie while he's watching The Music Man in the theater.
Cal, what's going on?
It's Clement's boy again, Hank. Third time this week I've caught him sneaking in for a freebie.
Leave him be. You ever see that boy's damn family?
So this is a case you would probably wonder why a 12-year-old sucking on a pacifier, right? This is one of the things that is one of those accelerators where, a foreign object like a pacifier with a 12-year-old immediately creates like this vacuum of logic where you have to make your own conclusions. I wanted the pacifier because I wanted people to understand that this kid is going through some shit. And this pacifier is the thing that comforts him. And also, someone that is 12 years old and still has this pacifier means that he doesn't have a normal system of support, emotional support. And we find him alone in a movie theater, sucking on a thing. He has a black eye. It's a lot of accelerators there that you see. And because Maddie is a character that will not be here for long, we needed people to engage with him and his predicament as fast as possible.
And it's effective. You see that pacifier and you're like, oh, that boy ain't right. All of my first year psych classes were like...
It also breaks your heart, It's like a low blow there because, it really melts your heart. It's like someone that is like a grown kid, but he's still hanging on to that, like if it was like a teddy bear or something. And things only get worse for him.
And he's aware because he's clearly ashamed of it. He keeps hiding it, poor guy, but he still needs it. So the original idea was to have an original musical scene. Andy wanted to shoot a musical scene because we love musicals. But sadly, we didn't have the money to do so. So Jason Fuchs and Brad, Caleb Kane, who are writers on the show, suggested Music Man because it was a Warner title and because, they love Trouble, this song.
1962 also.
Yeah, from 1962. So
it
it's
was a perfect fit.
I mean, it is such a great choice because The Music Man is fundamentally about an outsider who comes to a town and uncovers and disrupts what had been a placid, somewhat Norman Rockwell-like existence by exposing the ley lines of conflict that had always lay beneath the surface.
Yeah, Robert Preston is the Pennywise of Music Man. Similar hair.
All right, let's get into this scene with Maddie as he finds a nice family to give him a ride.
This is a scene in particular that I thought, okay, not during the dailies, but when they see the cut episode, we're going to get a call. We're going to get a call. And the funny situation is, although this is episode 1, we ended up shooting it out of order. We had shot 3 episodes, then the strike happened, and then we shot this episode. So at least the studio had been warmed up in the sense of intensity. They had seen 3 episodes already. They were like, okay, these guys are intense. But when we show them this, I'm like, oh, we're going to get a call. And we got an applause.
Most impressive.
Yeah, it's a great scene. Like, I think every layer of it is just very evocative of all the themes that you're playing with, the nuclear family being flipped up, the horror of childbirth, and then also tying in sort of the Cold War aspect and the underlying thing. So I would love to just hear more about the construction of this sequence and why it moves in this certain way.
I think it all starts with our monster and its MO, Pennywise being a manipulator and someone with a very playful nature. It will kill you, but before we'll make sure that, you're seasoned with enough adrenaline. And this is what it does. It's like creates a situation that is apparently safe and innocent.
Why don't you show our new friend what a good little speller you are? Spell bungalow.
B-U-N.
Then it just slowly descends into this ominousness and horror.
There goes my little harlot. Couldn't glue those legs together if you tried, I tell ya.
Reminds me of her mother.
And that's how the scene is built. So it starts with how would it do this to create the right seasoning. It's a slow descent into madness. It's like everything is fine and it's a wholesome nuclear family, as you said, very inviting and warm, and then strange little things start to happen. And it's a step by step. First, Maddie is reminded of the state of things, along with the audience, that the fears involved in this era are so much about nuclear attack and radiation, specifically birth defects.
Radiation poses a global risk, resulting in highly unusual birth defects. President Kennedy,
Dad, can we put something else on?
So it's something that we couldn't avoid, This is the Cold War. People have panic of nuclear attack and Bird the Turtle and whatnot. The kids especially, I can't imagine what would it be being a kid in that time where every day you're reminded that a nuclear bomb might fall any day now. You just have to go under the table. So we kind of exploited that. It is exploiting that, definitely. And we, exploited that to create a nice, memorable, hopefully memorable, horrifying scene. And the liver, of course.
The liver is what gets me every time. It's just
Well, I wanted to use elements that family would have. Strangely, they come from some kind of picnic in the middle of winter. So that's the thing that it does also, it's there's a sled on the back and there's picnic baskets and stuff, and she takes the liver. That doesn't make sense already. Where do they come from? We're in the exterior in the middle of a snowstorm. Yeah, and the liver was delicious. I couldn't think of anything more horrible than liver. And I showed this to Guillermo, obviously, Guillermo del Toro, when I always look up to him and try to show him everything I do. And he was like, that's amazing, but yeah, put a fly, cabrón. Put a fly. Put a fly, cabrón. It just completes, it seals the deal. You hear a fly, you can tell that liver smells like shit.
Oh, stop it.
The sound effects, when her fingers go in and you can the slippy sliminess of it, it gives me full body chills.
And that's the kind of things that siblings would do to each other. She does it to Maddie, but if Maddie wasn't there, she would do it to her little brother. I'll add one thing about this scene. It was important for us, and it was very important for Andy to start the first episode with a big bang, because in a way it's the inciting episode, just like we had in the movies. In the movies, first we had Georgie, being eaten by Pennywise. And in the second movie, we had the attack on Adrian Mellon, and then Pennywise.
We need like something like that kick in the groin at the beginning that is like, what the fuck? And it's like, this is not safe. This is not a safe world for anyone. And it gets worse, of course. If you people saw the episode, you will understand that there's another kick in the balls later that acts in the same way. You start with a shocking event that gets everyone on their toes.
And that's just episode 1. Imagine.
Imagine.
Yeah, and speaking of, we've gotta talk about that final movie theater scene. I mean, that was just another kick in the groin.
Give me your hand.
Let's talk about the choice to kill off what the audience thinks going into this episode is your new Losers Club, right? Like this is my band of characters. Here's who I'm going to roll with. And that is not in any way the case. So talk about that choice.
Yeah, so the idea, again, is like to do an augmented effect of the kick in the groin that was the death of Georgie, the death of Adrian Mellon in 1 and 2, and the attack on Maddie in episode 1. We thought of ending the episode with a big blast that sort of magnifies that sense that nobody is safe. So what a better way of doing it than presenting a set of characters that people believe that will be the protagonists of this series for the rest of the run, and kill them all at the end of the episode. It just felt right.
It goes back, Marc, to, it's the thin line between honoring the work you've done, but not repeating yourself, and keeping people on their toes. Best way to keep people on their toes is by cutting them off. So
definitely a subversion. And I think people, we do as much as possible, as much as an hour of television allows you to engage emotionally with these characters. And then, we pull the rug. And we'll see what people think.
It was good. It was effective. And I think, Andy, you said before that you use horror and humor in horror as a way to keep audiences on their toes. And in this case, take their toes off. How did you balance that kind of buildup? Because there's so many funny little bits and we have all this intimacy. How does that philosophy kind of lead into the movie theater showdown at the end of trying to mix humor, horror, and then wham?
I think there's always a line, you can use humor. I mean, the real final refinement is in the edit room. When you're on set and you give freedom to the actors and you come up with ideas on set and you think, oh, this would be funny. Of course, there's a sense of self-censorship that comes from the beginning, because you kind of have a line. How much humor can we put without giving a sense that nothing here is serious? So I don't know how to express it in words, but there's always a line that we find. And if you don't find it in the shoot because you shot one joke too many or one like slapstick moment too many, you will definitely find it in the edit room. Also, at that point you have some distance. You see all the pieces coming together, and you have like a real overview of what the episode is. So it's easier to calibrate those things once you're in the edit room. I think that to define it in words, there's a level of humor that belongs to a grounded reality that you can always like play a little further, a little back, but you have I have a kind of a sense of where that line is. Also because of the imprint that Stephen King had on us. When you learn how to tell a story, it always, you're always influenced by things. And Stephen King, for me, was the first indication that horror and humor can live together.
It also boils down to human nature. It's like comedy or laughter are necessary even in the darkest moments. People tell jokes in funerals, basically because it's a coping mechanism. It's how you release the pain and the tension. A little humor always reminds us of our condition.
Andy and Barbara, thank you so much for joining us today. This was so much fun, and we can't wait to get into episode 2 with you next week.
Princess Marc, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week, same perilous time, same dangerous place, chatting with the Muschiettis about episode 2. Plus, we'll be joined by Vincent Pross, one of the concept artists and creature designers who brought some of Derry's creepiest creations to life.
See you next week. The It Welcome to Derry podcast is a production of HBO in collaboration with Spoke Media. The show is hosted by me, Marc Bernardin, and Princess Weeks.
Jenna Burnett is our senior producer, and Tess Ryan is our supervising producer.
Our associate producer is Addie Vaughn, with help from Montserrat Rodriguez.
Sound design and mix by Sammy Syret.
Our executive producer for Spoke Media is Aliyah Tavakolian.
Special thanks to Michael Gluckstadt, Allison Cohen-Sorokach, Kenya Reyes, and Aaron Kelly from the HBO Max podcast team.
Thanks for listening and see you next week.